I'm doing my monthly manga reading log for April. I read 152 volumes from 12 different series. I'll have timestamps below, so if I'm talking about a series that you're not interested in, you can feel free to skip to a different section. And after going through my April reads, I'll share the series on my May TBR. Also, in the description below, I'll have a link to my Instagram account where I regularly share my current reads and my stories, as well as my thoughts as I'm reading them, and a link to my anime list where I track all the manga I'm reading along with my ratings for each series. So here are my reads for April. So the first week of April, I read all of Fruits Basket volumes 1 to 23. This is a shoujo series with drama, romance, and supernatural elements. It follows a girl who has lost both of her parents as she is befriended by members of the Soma family, some of them being animals of the Chinese zodiac. So I had already watched the anime and knew I loved this series, and I've had the manga on my TBR for a while, but I kept putting it off because I'm not crazy about the art style. But Dragon Ball Zoe hosted a Fruits Basket buddy read the first couple weeks of April. So I wanted to finally give it a try since it's her all-time favorite manga series, and I loved it. Halfway through the first chapter, the art style already didn't matter for me because I was already just getting sucked in from the dialogue, already knowing the characters and where the story was going to go. I really can't believe how good the story is. The humor is so good, but then in one chapter, I could be laughing and then crying. This series really brings out my protective side when I see sweet kids being mistreated. But by the end, there are characters I love, characters I hate, and still a ton of characters I have mixed feelings about the way they acted, the things they did, despite everyone having their own personal traumas that impacted their actions and decisions. But I love that we see really good character development with every character. I also love the little pairings, both the romances and also the friendships. And I definitely recommend reading this series even if you've already watched the anime. And if you've only read the manga, I'd really recommend checking out the anime as well. After reading Fruits Basket, I also read its spin-off series Fruits Basket Another, volumes 1 to 4. And I really didn't care for it. The main story of the spin-off is in the first 3 volumes. And it basically, for 3 volumes, just introduces the next generation of Soma kids, but in a kind of dramatic way, as if the reader should be trying to guess whose kid it is, but every kid just looks exactly like their parents and also acts exactly like them as well. And then running along with these repeated introductions and little Fruits Basket references, there's a little bit of plot as well as a clumsy, timid, non-Soma girl who gets entangled with all the Somas. And it seems like she was meant to give off Toru vibes, but in my opinion, the only similarity was her clumsiness, and she was very much just a typical damsel in distress character, which Toru was not. But volume 4 was almost entirely Fruits Basket bonus content that was supposed to be set in the timeline of the original series. So I did enjoy those sections. I did like the newer art style compared to the older art style in Fruits Basket, but then seeing Shigure and Hattori and Ayame in their newer art style just made me wish that they had redone the art for the release of the collector's editions instead of putting out a spin-off series that for me was extremely underwhelming and felt like it was just recycling the same characters, kind of just to appeal to nostalgia and make new money from fans of the original series. I also read Blank Canvas volumes 1 to 5. This is the Josei series, and it's an autobiographical work that is basically the mangaka in her late 30s recounting her life up to that point. The first couple volumes follow her as she's in her final year of high school, preparing for college entrance exams, going to art school, graduating, looking for work, her early days as a mangaka, and then all of her relationships along the way, especially her relationship with a sensei character who really influenced her and made a big impact on her life. Through the series, she talks about mistakes she made along the way and her regrets about tragic events in the final volume of the series. I absolutely loved the sensei character in this story, as well as a few other characters. And there were sections of the story that really broke my heart to read. And there were a few sections that I cried a lot, but by the final volume, I was really uncomfortable with the mangaka's self-depreciating humor and how she spoke pretty disparagingly about her own works leading up to this autobiography. In this recounting, she has a lot of guilt about things that happened in the final volumes, and it also made me uncomfortable to read because, for me personally, it felt like the mangaka was projecting her guilt at the readers as if we were blaming her and as if she wanted atonement through our forgiveness. I have a lot of mixed feelings about the series as a whole and issues with the storytelling, but I don't really want to voice my complaints about anything in the story because this is a recounting of actual events, and it's not my place to judge the decisions real people have made in real life. But that being said, there were parts I liked a lot, and I am glad that I read this series. I also read the chapters that will be volume 24 of Blue Lock. So this is a shonen sports series about soccer. I still have mixed feelings about this series because there are parts of the story I really enjoy, but then there are a lot of parts that irritate me because of how dramatic the story and characters are. But overall, I'm still enjoying the series. I'm happy Aiku made a reappearance because he's my favorite character. I had been just gradually reading the latest chapters as they were releasing, but now I'm trying to wait until there are like 6 to 10 chapters available to just binge through them. Otherwise, the matches and the content in general feel like they're dragging on. But I'm really curious to see how long the series is going to be and how they intend to wrap everything up. Rainbow Days. I read volume 3. This is a slice of life shoujo series set in high school that follows a friend group of 4 boys. In this volume, there's a beach trip and a love rival is introduced. The content still feels really familiar because I have just recently watched the anime, but I'm really enjoying reading the volumes as they're being released, as it's been a while since I've read this. It is completed already at 16 volumes in Japanese, and I'm still just really happy this series got an English print release. Something's Wrong with Us. I read volumes 13 and 14. This is a josei drama mystery romance series. Volume 13 was a reread so that all the drama and the latest twists would be fresh in my mind as I got into volume 14. And as usual, gorgeous art. I absolutely love the traditional feel of the story with the traditional Japanese elements like the clothing, wagashi, dance, and just some of the settings like being in Japanese inns. I was a little disappointed with the way the volume 13 cliffhanger was handled in volume 14. I guess it could have been worse, but I was a little disappointed. But other than that, I enjoyed the volume overall. The story just continues to be very intriguing. There's one character who I just absolutely love, and I love them more and more as the story goes. There are only 2 more volumes left in the series, in the main story after volume 14. So I'm really excited to see how the story will be wrapped up. And then I really hope the 3 side story volumes, 17 to 19, will be more low drama, happy content, but we'll see. Tsubaki-chou Lonely Planet. I got my volume 3 pre-order, so I reread volume 2 and then volume 3. This is the shoujo romance series that follows a high school girl working as a live-in housekeeper for a historical novelist. I love the background we get in this newest volume for Fumi, and it gives a little hint about the title of the series and a theme that will be recurring for the series as it goes. I really love this mangaka's art style, so reading these volumes was such a treat. She does such an amazing job really putting emotion into their expressions so you can feel the characters' discomfort or anguish when they're embarrassed or sad. But this series does have an age gap romance in it, so if you dislike those, then this may not be one for you, but it's one that I really love. Compared to this mangaka's other series, Daytime Shooting Star, which also has an age gap romance, I feel like Tsubaki-chou Lonely Planet has a lot less drama and focuses more on the relationship between the main characters rather than on love triangles and love rivals playing a major role. But it has been a while since I've read through this series, so I'm really enjoying reading the volumes as they release. But this series is already completed in Japan at 14 volumes, so now I'm just impatiently waiting for the volume 4 release. Tokyo Revengers. I read volumes 5 to 10. I just got my 5th omnibus mid-April, and I hadn't read my 4th omnibus when I got it a few months ago, so I wanted to reread my 3rd omnibus to have the story fresh in my mind and get into the next 2 so I'd be caught up with my physical volumes. So Tokyo Revengers is a shonen action series with sci-fi elements about middle school age delinquents with skips forward and backward to the characters both as middle schoolers and as adults. And I really enjoyed reading this. I haven't done a full reread of the series since I read through it the first time. I had binge read a portion of the series that was already out before season 1 of the anime aired. And then I caught up with the chapter releases and followed the weekly releases until the series ended last year. So it's really interesting now with this read through, but before it was a digital read for me, so I'm just thrilled to have this series printed in English and to be reading out of these gorgeous physical volumes. I also read volume 3 of the spin-off to Tokyo Revengers, Letter from Keisuke Baji. I'm really curious if this will get picked up in English as well, because it follows a couple characters from the series before the events of the main story. So Chifuyu is one of my favorite characters, so I really love that this spin-off story is from his point of view as a new member of Tomen. I'm really curious to see how things are going to wrap up because a few of the main characters in this spin-off aren't in the main story, so there has to be something that happens that is the reason for that. Also wondering how long it's going to be. I could see the story being wrapped up in the next volume, but then I could also imagine it being stretched out for a few more, so we'll see. I also read volumes 7 and 8 of My Dress Up Darling. This is a seinen comedy romance series about 2 high schoolers who work together on cosplay outfits. So volume 8 picks up right where volume 7 left off, as Gojo is working on Marin's new cosplay, and the whole volume is around this event and this new character. I feel like Gojo gets some really good development in this newest volume around his self-esteem and his relationships with his classmates. I'm still just really loving this series. It's so wholesome, and I love the overall message to not judge people for their interests and that you don't have to be ashamed about your hobbies. And I feel like most people in the manga community would really appreciate this series since we do share similar otaku interests. The Gods Lie. This is a seinen one-shot drama series that I read to participate in the one-shot readathon hosted by Bizarre Individual and Margaret's Manga the last week of April. It starts out seeming like it's going to be a cute and sweet story about the friendship between two elementary school kids, but then halfway through, there's a reveal and the story gets darker from that point. I really like the story, and it's impressive to me that they fit in such an interesting and moving story into just this single volume. I would have loved to have seen one additional chapter showing the events following the story, or even a little follow-up sequel, but as is, I really enjoyed it and would recommend it. Definitely check out the trigger warnings though, because there are some troubling themes. And then the final series on my log, and the series I spent the most time reading this month, was One Piece. I read volumes 1 to 104, and I was only 2.5 volumes short of reading the entire series in April, but I finished off those last volumes after midnight on May 1st, so I'll just include all my thoughts in this log instead of trying to split it up between my April and May logs. So this series had been on my radar just because of its popularity, and I put it on my 2023 TBR just to at least get into it and see what it was like. And being completely honest, I was very motivated to read One Piece because of fan art. I had seen so much really good fan art, and I wanted to know who these characters were and if I'd still love the fan art after knowing who the characters were. So all I knew going into it was that it was a shonen adventure series about pirates. And some of my preconceptions were that I might not like the art style because it's a series that started in the 90s, and that the action might be over the top. So I was really surprised that from chapter 1 in volume 1, I liked the art style. It was really easy to get into, and the humor right from the start aged really well. I do honestly think there is some absurdity when it comes to some of the character designs, and there are times in the story where it does feel a bit wacky and over the top, but it's not really as obnoxious and in your face as I thought it would be. My biggest complaint would probably be some of the arcs have awkward pacing, but more so the inconsistency around violence and death. So the series starts with a death. So I thought it would be more of a serious series in that regard. But then when some characters seem absolutely terrible and just disgusting, but then they just get like bonked in the head, and it's like, hope they learned their lesson. So then I was like, okay, yeah, this is a series for kids, okay. But then later, there are more just really devastating deaths that are super tragic and really impactful. And then again, followed by terrible antagonists just being taught a lesson. So I do wish it would have stuck to a more consistent level of ruthlessness. But apart from that, I did really enjoy the series. What I love the most about One Piece is the themes of friendship and loyalty. There are so many characters that I absolutely love. Most of the characters get really good character development as the series goes. There are tragic moments in certain arcs that just broke my heart, and I did cry a lot reading certain backstories and sections where characters lose loved ones. While there are some antagonists I find kind of just annoying, there are a lot of villain characters who I find extremely well written. And then while I have my favorite arcs and then some arcs that I felt were just okay, all of them are adventures that they're going on, and they're all just really fun. Sanji is my favorite character, and if you like One Piece, let me know in the comments who your favorite character is. My favorite arcs were Paramount War, Dressrosa, and Wano. And then I also really liked Alabasta, Water 7, Sabaudi, and parts of Whole Cake Island. But my read-through was a buddy read with a friend that really helped me to keep a fast pace while reading the series. If I had been reading it on my own, I probably would have read at a slower pace, but I do find this series really binge-worthy. It is really hard to put it down mid-arc, and I felt really good about reading it on the Shonen Jump app. It's only about $3 a month, and so $3 for the month of April, and I read over 100 volumes. So if you do want to get into this series without making a huge investment into the physical volumes, I definitely recommend reading it on the Shonen Jump app to see what you think of it. But overall, I really enjoyed my read of One Piece, and while I didn't love it to the point that it's in my overall top 10, it probably is on my top 10 now just for shonen series, and definitely is one of my favorite adventure series now. But now that I'm caught up to the latest digital chapter releases, I'm going to be following it week to week to see where things go now that a lot of climactic events are coming together. But those were all my reads for April, and I also wanted to share what my tentative May TBR looks like. So I'm planning to buddy read Horimiya, volumes 1 to 15 with a few friends on Instagram in preparation for volume 16, which will be released toward the end of the month. Also, Kimi ni Todoke volumes 1 to 30, another buddy read with my friend Jasmine and a few other friends on Instagram. I'm so excited to do a full read-through of my physical volumes after getting the last few volumes I was missing when they were recently reprinted. Also a manhwa series, Maspaka Advertising Department. This is one that I've been wanting to read because I'm interested in getting this creator's art books. So I want to know all the characters who are featured in them. Also, loving Yamada-kun at level 999. It seems like the anime that just started airing is being received really well, but I would like to read the manga before watching it. And it's been on my radar for a while since Cadence recommended it on her channel forever ago. But I kept putting it off, so finally planning to get into it. And then some of the new releases I'm planning to read through the month as I receive my pre-orders are Life Lessons with Uramichi Onisan Omnibus 4, so volumes 7 and 8. And then Yakuza Fiancé, Raisei wa Tanagai volume 3, and A Sign of Affection volume 6. So that's everything for my April manga reading log and May TBR. Let me know in the comments what your favorite read in April was, or what's on your May TBR. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video.